For several decades now, the city of Sydney has been experiencing substantial growth in its population. According to the Greater Sydney Commission's A Metropolis of Three Cities, Greater Sydney is one of the top 10 fastest growing regions in the Western world and is projected to grow by 1.7 million people by 2036. Recent research from Sydney University has shown that as cities grow, income and wealth grow superlinearly, which means that if the city size grows by 10%, income and wealth generation grow by more than 10%. Wealth, however, isn't distributed evenly. The wealthiest residents tend to receive a bigger slice of the income and wealth growth in urban cities. In fact, Sydney is the most unequal region in all of Australia. Currently, most of Sydney's opportunities and in turn wealth are concentrated close to the CBD in the eastern suburbs and North Shore. However, this is a problem for Sydney since most of its population growth is projected to occur in the west and southwest of the city. By 2036, Greater Western Sydney is projected to be home to 51% of all of Sydney's residents. However, economic growth in the region has to improve if the area is to grow sustainably. The problem with economic inequality, though, is that it tends to lead to other problems, one of which is educational disadvantage. This disparity is reflected on this map in the stark differences in scores in the National Assessment Program Literacy and Numeracy, which Australian students sit for annually. A clear dividing line can be seen along the so-called latte line, which is an imaginary boundary that divides northeastern and southwestern Sydney by socioeconomic differences. If Sydney's Metropolis of Three Cities plan is to succeed, the education achievement gap between the East and the West will need to be closed. The closing of this gap also aligns with the UN Sustainable Development Goal number 4, equitable education for all, which is included in the Resilient Sydney strategy under Direction 1, a people-centered city. While the City of Sydney has highlighted the issue in its Resilient Sydney Strategy 2018, let's take a look at educational policies from other urban cities that have successfully reduced educational inequality and improved educational outcomes of disadvantaged students. In 1987, Chicago was called the worst school system in the country by then U.S. Secretary of Education, William J. Bennett. However, since then, Chicago has worked diligently to improve low-performing schools. Recent research out of Stanford University indicates that even though most Year 3 students start off well behind their more advantaged peers, by Year 8, they have nearly caught up to the national average. It is a rate of learning that outpaces 96% of all other U.S. school districts. These improvements have also increased the number of Year 9 students who say that they expect to earn a bachelor's degree within 10 years, rising by 7%. Chicago achieved these results by focusing on 3 primary areas. 1, improving the quality of their school leadership. 2, using a data-driven approach by collaborating with researchers at the University of Chicago who've analyzed past education policies and helped advise on changes to practice and policy. 3rd, they improved the quality of the teachers hired, rolled out a new teacher evaluation system, and increased academic standards. Chicago is a great example of a school system that shows that with patience and careful analysis, you can help disadvantaged students close the gap with their more advantaged peers. In the year 2000, inner-city London schools were considered the worst in England for student outcomes. Since then, however, London schools have improved dramatically. Between 2005 and 2013, inner London schools improved more than anywhere else in the country. For example, schools in the inner city boroughs of Hackney and Tower Hamlets, considered economically disadvantaged with large concentrations of immigrants, have gone from among the 3 lowest achieving boroughs in the country to closing the achievement gap and reaching the national average. London schools' success is attributed to a couple of key interventions. Among them were area-wide reforms as opposed to a focus on low-performing schools. Second, London placed a considerable emphasis on the professional development and learning of their teachers through intensive education and training. Third, they provided financial support to programs for disadvantaged students. London illustrates that by focusing efforts on what's happening inside the classroom, you can foster educational excellence even in disadvantaged areas. For Sydney to meet its resiliency targets and witness sustainable growth, we would make the following recommendations based on the two case studies. We'd recommend that Sydney create a partnership with Western Sydney University to analyze all educational policies that affect Western Sydney schools in order to identify policies that are working and those that aren't. Second, there should be a focus on improving the quality of school principals and recruiting promising rising school leaders. Third, a new teacher evaluation system should be rolled out that is tougher. The new evaluation system should use principal observations and student achievement to determine teacher effectiveness. The benefits of investing in access to quality education and reducing the achievement gap are felt not only in improved test scores, but also in economic growth, lower levels of criminality, higher social well-being, and increased economic equality. Through equity in education, Sydney can accomplish a number of goals in its Resilient Sydney strategy. Let's build a better educated and more equal Sydney.